fellow gamers, it's your boy Zero Wink, and I'm finally back to doing reviews. I've been very, very sick. I had to actually go to California and help my mom move, so I was gone for a long time, like a month, and I've thought about a lot of things that I want to do with the channel, and I thought about a lot of things that I wanted to give you guys, and all the content that I'm going to be bringing out, so expect a lot more content, whether it be news articles, whether it be my opinion pieces, whether it be vlogs, whether it be all pertaining to gaming, of course. But I definitely want to give you guys more. I've just been terribly, terribly sick, and as you can hear it in my voice, I'm not exactly 100%. But anyway, this review is long overdue. We aren't going to have a skit for you this time because it is long overdue, and sometimes we're going to have skits, sometimes we're not. It's really going to depend on the game and whether we can afford to do the skit or whether we can figure out, because I really couldn't figure out anything that I could do that would pertain to the game, except maybe the main character's incessant need to eat before every battle. So it was, you know, I mean, we could have made a little funny skit, but that's the reason it's missing. But other than that, I just want to say thank you for tuning in, and this is the long-awaited Disgaea 5 review from the Kickshawbrothers. Disgaea as a series has always been really funny, it's always been really comedic, it's always been very, very out there, let's put it that way. Like Disgaea 3 is the perfect example, one of my favorite games, where he's basically going after his father, which is the overlord of the underworld, because his father took away his gaming system. Dumb stuff like that. Really, really weird reasons to go and try to take over the underworld. Disgaea 5 actually takes that same comedic tone and puts it into a more darker story. You're actually following the main character, Kilia, when he meets up with this budding female princess of the underworld named Seraphina. You end up running into all these different budding overlords that have all their own goals of where they want to be at the end of everything. Alright, so on to graphics. Now graphics, I'm not the type to grade a game on photorealistic graphics. Whatever the artist, I believe the artist is going for, if they achieved that, they're going to get a nice score from me. And Disgaea 5 is no exception to that. Even though it's not photorealistic graphics, even though it's more of an anime art style when the characters' avatars are talking, even though they do reuse a lot of assets from previous Disgaea games, they added in a lot of different attacks. Different attacks are probably what make this game very, very interesting and very, very fun. It makes you want to get all the attacks, and I've always been saying that I really like those attacks where they come in, they do that boss attack like old school Final Fantasy, Ifrit and Shiva. They come in, they do their attack, and they leave. Attacks like Ultima or Thunder 3 or any of those that take up the whole screen and cause the whole things to happen. You have a lot of attacks that do that here. Each individual character has their own original attacks. They have their own original overlord skill that also has an animation that goes along with it. They learn attacks throughout the game that also get their own animation. So you're seeing a lot of animations from attacks. You're seeing a lot of different animations. It's not repeated animations over and over and over and over again. And there's just some amazing, amazing attacks. The graphics do take a hit, a little bit of a hit, only because they reuse a lot of the assets. You do end up facing a lot of the same avatars as you proceed through the game, aside from the main bosses, or aside from the main enemies, or the enemies that are inside the story. So you do see a lot of reused assets and a lot of reused avatars. Sprites would probably be a better word. You see a lot of reused sprites. You can actually have over 100 plus characters in your arsenal of characters. That's what makes this game great. The animations are better than I've ever seen in any Disgaea game. The animations are really, really good. You have the animations for the attacks. You have the actual worlds that you view. They're very sleek. They look very, very nice. An upgrade, I would say, from previous Disgaea titles. And there's just a lot to view in this game. It's very, very aesthetically pleasing, despite the fact that they're using sprites a lot of the time and more of that anime. I'm going to give the graphics in this a 9 out of 10, because even though they're not photorealistic graphics, and even though they aren't AAA graphics, the graphics achieved what they were supposed to achieve. Game looks great overall. Now, the storyline actually has a lot of different parts to it. You have your 6 main characters that are budding overlords that are going after the overlord that's destroying the netherworld. Basically, the netherworld is a place where all the overlords live and all the overlords call home. So you have all your different overlords of different realms, and basically the main antagonist of the story, called Void Dark, is actually trying to destroy all these netherworlds. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly why he's doing this, but he's doing this for a reason. I'm also going to say that you also have the dynamic of the main character, Kilia, fighting within himself. Do you remember how Cloud had to fight between what he was and what he thought he was? Well, it's kind of like that in this game, where Kilia is fighting between what he was previously and what he is now. So he has to end up fighting with himself, so that's another dynamic. Each individual overlord has a storyline within themselves that they have to overcome. Each individual storyline has a backstory. Each character has a backstory. It has a narration between each of the chapters. So basically, you have a narrative the game follows also. You also have a fun, comical, on the next episode type thing that's also a part of it. So there's a lot of pieces here. From the main antagonist versus the main protagonist, to the protagonist fighting with himself, to each of the 6 overlords having to overcome something, to each of the overlords having to deal with a regret that they had in the past. There is a lot of storyline here. This is probably one of the best storylines I've actually been a part of in a long, long time. There's so many pieces, and the pieces fall in so well with each other that I have to give storyline a perfect 10 out of 10. Because storyline, I would say, is perfect for this particular game. There's really no loopholes left. There's really nothing left. You get a satisfying ending. I'm talking it goes through each individual character and what they do after the game ends. So you get to see what each individual character turn into, which is rare these days. Normally we get the cliffhanger endings, but in Disgaea 5, you don't get that. Sound and soundtrack. A lot of the attacks, the sounds are perfect. The entire game is voice acted, from the narration to the storyline to all the individual characters. Everything in this game is voice acted. Previous Disgaeas, you had to read and read and read and read. That becomes an issue sometimes. So some of the characters have some interesting voices, but you do get used to them, and you see their personality starts coming out within the character a little later. It does start out a little dry, a lot of the characters. They don't seem to have much personality behind the voices. When you're voice acting, you want to add that personality to the voice, and they don't really do that to start, but eventually they do. And they do it pretty early. It's not like you wait till half the game before the personality starts coming into the voice. Couple of chapters, 2 chapters, the voices seem kind of bland, but as you move on, and as you gain more characters, you start loving a lot of the characters' voices, you start getting used to a lot of the voices. Even the side characters have a voice a lot of the time, unless you talk to them outside of the storyline. Then you're going to have to read a little bit of text. But overall, the voice acting was good. The soundtrack was a great soundtrack. There's some soundtracks that just really hit you, and they sound really nice, and they sound really, really good. Great sound. But then sometimes they play the same track over and over. The sound at your home station, your home netherworld, your pocket netherworld, was kind of annoying because they just kept replaying it and replaying it and replaying it. Due to the fact that some of the soundtrack does get a little bit of annoying, I'm going to drop the soundtrack down to an 8 out of 10, which is still an above average soundtrack, because there are times and moments in it where you're just like, I could listen to this track all day. Voice acting is superb. Everything sounds pretty good. It's just they need to work on a little bit, maybe adding a little bit more soundtrack to the game to give a little bit more variety to it would have been very welcome. That brings us into fun factor. Now, the game overall is fun, and due to the fact that it has a lot of comedy in it, and has a lot of different parts to it, and the storyline is engaging, and there's a lot of things you can do in it, a lot of different equipment you can get, a lot of different things you can do, which we'll talk about later in content. Overall, the game is fun, and it does keep you interested in wanting to learn more attacks, to see the animation to those attacks. You're engaged in the story. Overall, it's fun. It's very, very strategic. You're going to have to use the geo nodes. The game plays more like a chess game, so it will keep you engaged in terms of a logical thinking perspective. Overall, the game is fun. I wouldn't call it the funnest I've ever played. It does slow down at points, you know, where the gameplay just slows down, and the fact that they reuse a lot of the avatar assets, the sprite assets and stuff, it does take a little bit away from the game in terms of fun factor because certain things become repetitive. It is a lot of fun if you're a strategy guy. If you're not a strategy guy, if you're not into strategy type games, if you're not into like chess and you're not into figuring things out and doing puzzles and stuff, this is probably not the game for you. But in terms of fun factor, for a person who enjoys strategy games and for people who want to take a chance, the game overall is above average fun. So I'm going to give fun factor an 8 out of 10. It is fun, it is strategic, it will keep you engaged, but there are some moments where it slows down a little too much, and that can affect your fun level and whether you want to keep going or not sometimes, depending on the player. But overall, an 8 out of 10 seems reasonable. And that brings us to gameplay. You're going to be hard-pressed to find a strategic game that's better than this one. You have a lot of different things that you have to do to get ready for the fights in this particular game. You also have to do a lot of things to set your team up to where they can actually win. Very strategic. You have to grind a lot. You have to know what you can and can't use. You can't just keep using the same attacks over and over and over again until, of course, you power them up substantially, and then you can. But up until that point, a lot of the boss battles, a lot of the battles themselves, sometimes you'll have 50 characters on the screen that you gotta beat. One particular level, I'm not gonna spoil too much, but you have 50 zombies, I believe. 50 zombies that take a lot to kill, and you only have access to 10 people on the board at one time. So basically, your party, you have access to 10 people. Basically, it's set up like a chess game. You can move forward a certain number of spaces. Your attacks only hit in certain directions, so it's geometry based in terms of your attacks. In terms of strategic gameplay, you're going to have to really decide how you want to use stuff until, of course, like I said, you level up everything, and then you can hit everything in a wide range. But until you do that, there's a lot of stuff you have to do to prepare for each battle. I'm talking from items to putting items on your weapons to putting the correct weapons on each character. There's a lot of strategic elements in this game, including the geo nodes, which add different buffs that you can either erase completely or you can use to your benefit or your detriment. It really depends. There's a lot of different things you have to do in the strategic gameplay. If you like being challenged puzzle-wise, if you like being challenged strategic-wise, if you like being challenged, this is definitely the game for you. So there's that puzzle format, there's that feeling like, okay, I gotta really prepare for this battle. I recommend this game for anybody who's into strategy, anybody who's into puzzles, anybody who actually wants a challenge in a turn-based format, like in chess. I gotta give gameplay in this a 10 out of 10. There are no bugs in it. You're not gonna hit any bugs. You're not gonna hit any problems. It's smooth gameplay throughout the whole thing. You can even skip the animations if you don't like them. So if you don't like a certain animation, but you're using it constantly, you can even skip the animations. You can skip the animations, you can skip the narrative, you can skip anything you want to skip if you just want to rush through the game, which adds even more to the gameplay, because if you're playing through it a second time, or you're playing through it and you don't want to see the animations over and over and over again, then you can skip them, which is great. So yeah, definitely. This is as close to perfect as you're going to get. Obviously, nothing is perfect, but I would give this a 10 out of 10. It's as close to perfect as I've ever seen a game, especially on the PS4 or this generation of gaming. On to length. There's a reason many reviewers do not actually play through the entire RPG before they do the review, because these games take a long, long time to beat, which is why I'm trying to set a standard that if I can get to an RPG, I'm going to get to it, and I'm going to review it for you guys, just in case if you guys need something to fill in between those third-person action adventure games and those shorter games. This is a game that's definitely going to fill that time. The game itself, if you want everything, is going to take you over 300 plus hours to complete. That's everything. I'm talking all the equipment, I'm talking all the other things which we'll get into in content, but in terms of length, this game, just playing through it, will take you 60 plus hours hours to complete, which adds a whole lot of play value to it, whole lot of time you put into the game, the storyline and the side quests and everything else that you can do in it. No way to give it any other score but a 10 out of 10. There's not many games out there that will take you 100 plus hours aside from games like Dragon Age or big time RPGs, but this game will take you 60 plus hours if you want to rush through it, and that's if you don't go grind in the item world. That's if you don't go grind in the actual game. Tons of stuff to do in this game. You'll never get through all of it until you're willing to sit down and put the 300 hours into it or whatever, but this game has a lot of value just for that reason, so I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 for length. This game will last you a long, long time if you're into this sort of thing. Content. The content in this game, you get 6 main characters. You have 50 plus side characters. The archer, you have the gunner, you have the fighter, you have the jujitsu guy, you have the healer, you have the 5 classes within each class. You have delegation area, passing a bill for your netherworld, doing all the political stuff if you want, so you have that room. You have taking over other netherworlds and exploring other netherworlds, so you have to send people out to explore. You have to interrogate baddies that actually get caught. Just in that, it will take you forever. But then you've got the main storyline, and then you've got the questing, and then you've got the item grinding. Now, if you don't know what the item world is, if you haven't played the Disgaea game, this is a world that you go into, and you just level up each individual item. So not only can you level up your character, not only can you level up your character's moves, but you can also level up individual items. And on top of individual items, you can even put things on top of those individual items, like innocence. They're called innocence to give you different buffs and everything on top of that. Each individual character has their own individual likes and dislikes. You have to get curry, you have to get all these different things, items, just tons of items. There's no way to give any other score but a 10 out of 10. There's more to do in this game than in Halo, Tomb Raider, Until Dawn, and even Mad Max I'll throw in there combined. There's more to do in this game, simply because there's so much to explore. There's so many different netherworlds, there's so many different things you have to get through. You can go over 1 billion plus damage if your characters are leveled up enough, and the attacks are leveled up enough. There is nothing you can't do in this game. So it baffles me that people in this day and age are complaining about content, when you have a game that takes you 300 plus hours to complete, has all this stuff to do, and it's for $60. Maybe less now, I don't know. I haven't checked it, but I bought it for $60. If it's $60, it's well worth the price of admission. The content in this is actually massive. I haven't even begun to get into it. And yeah, I'm talking really excited about it because you don't get games that have this much content. But games that have this much content should be praised. The only single player campaigns that give you 60 plus hours, on top of all the grinding you have to do, on top of all the other stuff you have to do. So that brings the final score to a 67 out of 70. It's as perfect as you can get in terms of game. There are no bugs. You won't run into any glitches. You won't run into anything that's broken. You can save all your progress. What does that mean? That means it comes out to my best score that I've given on the PlayStation 4, a 9.5 out of 10. Disgaea 5 has all the things you need in a game to keep you intrigued. It has the strategic events, it has the puzzles, it has all the different areas, it has the 60 plus hour campaign, it has all the grinding you have to do it, all the items, all the stuff, and you're getting a cheap DLC. You will not feel like you spent 60 bucks on a game that doesn't deserve your money. You will not feel like you were cheated out of your money. With the way the storyline is, it's satisfying. The ending is satisfying. The fact that it goes through all 6 characters so you get to see what they do after the game's done, not like Mass Effect back on the PlayStation or Xbox 360 when they just cut off the ending. It didn't give you nothing. You aren't going to get that here. This storyline, it's a complete storyline. Each character has their own storyline. You have to fight between the main character and himself, on top of the fight with the main character and the main antagonist, on top of the other 2 antagonists. The storyline is amazing. Content in it is massive. This game deserves all the praise that Kickshawbrothers can possibly give to it. And it's a shame that so many games are being crapped on when you've got a game like this sitting in the wings on PlayStation. It's sitting there waiting to be played. It's worth every penny if you're into strategic gameplay, if you're into turn-based gameplay, if you're into JRPGs, SRPGs, if you're into any of those categories, this is a game for you. This is a game you must have. This is a game that will keep you interested. If you are a logical gamer, if you are a gamer that really likes intricacies, and you're a gamer that really likes to grind, and you're a gamer who likes to get the most out of his game. So, this game is as close to perfect as you're going to get. So I'm going to put it at a 9.5 out of 10. It's a must-own for any PlayStation owner, especially if you're getting annoyed about the amount of content that you're getting from some of these games. It's the best score I've given so far, and it deserves every bit of praise that it gets. It's sad that games like this aren't praised at the Game Awards, that games like this aren't praised in the mainstream media, because this game is well worth your money. I hope this brings awareness to this game. I can't say enough good things about this game. If you're a gamer that really likes to be challenged, if you're a gamer that really likes long, drawn-out experiences, long campaigns, the campaign will remind you a lot of old-school JRPGs, whether it be Legends of Dragoon, or whether it be old-school Final Fantasy. I'm talking NES now. I'm talking real old-school Final Fantasy, even Final Fantasy VII. It will remind you a lot of why you started playing games, why you started enjoying these games. And I hope this brings awareness to it, and I will see all you guys and gals on the next Kickshawbrothers review.